Hi, I'm Christy McDonald, and here's what's coming up this week on One Detroit. We head to Benton Harbor as the EPA tests more homes this week for lead in the water. Plus, my conversation with Miriam Noland and the impact of 36 years as the president of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. And then a closer look at the reasons behind the low voter turnout this election cycle. It's all ahead this week on One Detroit.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Also brought to you by, and viewers like you.
Hi there and welcome to One Detroit. I'm Christy McDonald. So glad that you're with me this week. We have a lot coming up on the show, including a look at the water crisis in Benton Harbor, how the state is handling pipe replacement, and what's next for residents. Plus, my conversation with the president of the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan, Miriam Noland. She's retiring after 36 years. She and I reflect on the work, investment in the region, and legacy. Then, what's behind the low voter turnout last week? We have a BridgeDetroit and American Black Journal special report with Bryce Huffman and A.J. Walker. And then we'll end up with a little bit of arts and culture and introduce you to R&B singer Gabriel Duran, who uses his roots in Southwest Detroit as inspiration. It is all coming up this week on the show. We're starting off with the water crisis in Benton Harbor. This week, the EPA is testing water in hundreds of homes looking for levels of lead, and lead pipe replacement is expected to start next week. What is happening in Benton Harbor underscores the importance of updating aging infrastructure and listening to its residents. One Detroit's Bill Kubota has more.
We were before Flint. We were doing bull acts way back then.
You've been dealing with boil advisories
for a while. I could go back till at least 2012.
So why are we boiling water? The water's undrinkable.
Boiling water might help, but it won't make lead go away. In Benton Harbor in southwest Michigan, Nathan Smith smelled trouble a decade ago.
I started probably 2011. That's when I stopped drinking the water.
Okay, and why? What was it about it?
It was a smell. It was an odor. It was something wrong. The dangerous part, it was clear.
Now bottled water's a way of life. High lead levels hiding in plain sight for 3 years. Big headlines the past 2 months.
It's really unimaginable that you could live with, not just the stress of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the stress of having unsafe drinking water in your home on top of that, and not knowing when you're going to get safe drinking water in your home.
With that in mind, in September, Nick Leonard's Great Lakes Environmental Law Center joined other groups to submit a petition demanding government action.
And the severity of it, we were seeing homes as high as nearly 900 parts per billion, which is nearly 60 times the lead action level. We thought that the residents weren't getting the response that they deserved, and many were just completely unaware that there was any issue with their drinking water.
Our One Detroit partner, Great Lakes Now, is working with MLive's Garret Ellison.
Since October 6th, it's been a pretty high-profile response. It's been a lot of news crews in Benton Harbor, been a lot of questions being asked, and that's a status that's going to probably continue for quite a while.
Getting everyone on the same page has been a challenge.
I didn't get an alert on my phone. I heard some people got an alert on their phones, but I never did get one. I don't know why.
When did you find out about the lead problem with the water?
Listening over TV.
Communication issues, that distrust of government, shades of Flint here in Benton Harbor, another majority black city that had been ruled by an emergency manager. The water plant already had its troubles. Then lead joined the mix. Not a surprise to health officials.
There was some water distribution, in the past few years, but not at the levels that are happening now. Now the governor has said she's going to send 20 semi-trucks full of 30,000 cases of water every week.
Francis Kai-Hwa Wang's part of the PBS NewsHour team covering the crisis.
Well, you see the sign when you drive to Chicago, but tell me about Benton Harbor.
Yeah, so Benton Harbor used to be a booming town with manufacturing, and there started to be more and more of a black community that came to work in the factories and work in manufacturing.
White flight shrank the tax base, then a downward spiral.
The population of the city is half the size it was in 1960.
Now less than 10,000, one more Rust Belt town like Flint, though much smaller. How does this compare to Flint? Is it a similar situation, or facts are different here?
I think there's some similarities and there's some differences. There was a specific event that led to high levels of lead in Flint's drinking water, and it was the switch in water source without changing the corrosion control treatment to match the change in water chemistry that resulted from that switch. In Benton Harbor, we don't really have that. There was no sort of discrete act that caused the high lead levels in Benton Harbor. It's a community with a lot of lead service lines, and it's a community that wasn't using corrosion control treatment, which was allowable under our regulations.
Benton Harbor would implement corrosion control, but that didn't solve the problem.
It's more just a case of infrastructure that was deteriorating from decades of disinvestment, and it eventually reached essentially a breaking point.
Lead testing showed Benton Harbor overall at 24 parts per billion.
The thing is that when it hits 15 parts per billion of lead in the water, that's when they're legally required to do something, right? Before that, they're not required to do anything by law, but as a lot of the activists are saying, legal does not mean safe, because all the doctors, the medical community will say no amount of lead is safe.
Benton Harbor's not alone. Elevated levels found in Hamtramck, St. Clair Shores, a lot of other places too. The feds have tossed in about $5 million of the $30 million needed for Benton Harbor.
At the same time, the governor was able to get $10 million for Benton Harbor to replace the pipes. She had applied for $20 million, but the legislature only approved $10 million. So now Benton Harbor has about $15 million.
The rest, maybe federal infrastructure money.
The state of Michigan is pledging to get all of Benton Harbor's lead service lines dug up out of the ground and replaced by April 2023. That's essentially 18 months from now. That's a tall order. And, it remains to be seen if that can actually be done.
Back on the water line, MLive's Garret Ellison chats with resident Anthony Bell.
I don't believe they're going to fix the water. I'm just being honest. I really don't. I just, only way they're going to fix the water if they get pressure.
Bell's thinking a mass protest in Lansing is in order.
How did this happen in Michigan, and the place where we promised, I think everybody promised, it's not going to happen again. This isn't going to be the last sort of flood crisis that we see. In the future, we need to make sure that we're responding better and making sure that we're listening to residents and making sure that they have clean drinking water.
For more on our coverage of water quality in Michigan, just follow Great Lakes Now and head to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. One of the things I like about my job here at One Detroit is the opportunity to talk with leaders around our state about the decisions they're making that impact all of our lives. For the last 36 years, Miriam Nolan has led the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. It's among the 30 largest foundations in the country. It has awarded $1.3 billion in grants for our area. And Miriam and her team were instrumental in working with other foundations to form the Grand Bargain during Detroit's bankruptcy, among many other crucial investments. Well, Miriam is now retiring, and I had an opportunity to speak with her up at the Mackinac Policy Conference as she reflected on impact, philanthropy, and leadership. Let's take a look back and maybe a more of a global view of how you have seen philanthropy change and the role of philanthropy in Detroit and in Southeast Michigan over the amount of time that you've been with the Community Foundation.
Philanthropy's changed just like every other sector. That's true. When I came, Detroit was very much a pay-as-you-go place. Mm-hmm. Very large, generous givers, but pay it out and it went away. There were no endowments. And so when I came to build a community endowment, I had no idea there wasn't that tradition. It was elsewhere in the country of putting money aside in a permanent way. And since that time, yes, we've had success, but we also have some more private foundations that are helping build that permanent capital, because the charitable sector needs permanent capital, just like the for-profit sector. I see more organizations now building endowment. We have 230 some building their endowments with the Community Foundation, because you have to help people understand that they can do good while they're alive, but also in their estate plans. I also think that you see a switch in some extent the corporate giving patterns.
What about how foundations work with each other? Some of the larger foundations and coming together and saying, how can we align some of our goals to be even more powerful?
We've learned how to work together better. It's not totally a new thing. When I first came, the Community Foundation had no money, so we had to work together, and I think we've been successful in that over the years. But things like the grand bargain brings you together in a way where you have to cooperate. And now we share some goals together around major activities. I think we're going to see more of that happening because the issues are large, they're complex, they don't change overnight. And even though philanthropy's money pales in terms of size in relation to the public sector, sometimes we can help make some things happen. I see that recently now there's a conversation about how do you really help finish some of the things that have been started by philanthropy, whether it's the Riverfront Conservancy and Joe Louis Greenway. How do they work together? How do we work with the public sector to try to make some private and public sector activity coming together?
You mentioned some of the projects working on the Greenway and the Riverfront Conservancy, and you also mentioned the Grand Bargain, which you were instrumental in helping have the conversations and work through and helping the city of Detroit emerging from bankruptcy. Take me back to that time and what some of those conversations were like for you, and when you look back at the career that you have had and the things that you have been able to achieve with the foundation and help others do, would that stand out as one of the major things?
Oh, sure. It will be one, but not the only. When I think about the fact the Community Foundation has had almost 30 years of helping build greenways, that we have had the New Economy Initiative, now $190 million of helping small businesses, all with the cooperation and collaboration and money from other philanthropy, as well as the public sector as well. What I'm going to remember are the people, and that's what I will miss, because it's leaders and people that make things happen. Without people willing to compromise, we don't get these things done. And that was truly the grand bargain. From the pensioners collaborating and cooperating to the DIA, to the Ford Foundation. It was an amazing coming together, but we all knew that we could make a difference. So it's really about people saying to themselves, can I make a difference? And then when they can, stepping up and doing it.
Talk to me a little bit about leadership, being a powerful woman in the front of the room, being a decision maker, and being able to influence other young female leaders in Southeast Michigan.
Well, if I'm powerful, I like to be the powerful woman in the back of the room, because I think you can actually make a lot of things happen by not being the most visible. And so maybe that's what I've been trying to do over the years. Look, for me, it's sort of a practical, no-brainer kind of thing. What we need in Southeast Michigan and in Michigan is talent. We need to nurture talent. We need to retain talent. And I'll be darned if there aren't a lot of women and girls that, given the opportunity, will provide a lot of that talent going forward. So I think it's smart for all of us to find some of that talent and work with it, mentor it, support it, and there's a lot more work to do there. And we have issues of all kinds of diversity. And we need to find that talent and recognize it and move it forward. I look forward to continuing to help individuals that want to give back, want to be a part of leading going forward, that have ideas.
I want to ask you before I let you go a little bit about how the foundations are rallying together to talk about some of the spending, some of the stimulus money that we're getting from Washington coming out of COVID. What are some of the priorities here?
Well, there's a lot of work to do there, and not all of it needs to be done in the next 6 months because it's a couple years. I don't think the foundation community has totally coalesced around that. It's being done on a localized level, and that's healthy. The Council of Michigan Foundations is very hard at work at helping us, particularly with the monies flowing through the state. But I would encourage any municipality that would like some help to reach out to their local foundations because I think there's a willingness and a readiness. What we can help with is technical assistance, some data, all kinds of things to ready them to better compete and make their case.
To honor Miriam's impact on our community, the Miriam C. Nolan Fund for Public Spaces was announced just last week. It's a $2.5 million endowment to invest in greenways, parks, and playgrounds, places where people come together and make a community thrive. My thanks to Miriam. Turning now to election turnout from last week, specifically looking at the city of Detroit. There was the mayor's race and city council, along with several other important initiatives, but turnout was historically low. BridgeDetroit reporter Bryce Huffman teamed up with American Black Journal producer A.J. Walker to take a closer look at why some Detroiters went to the polls while others chose not to vote.
The city of Detroit struggles with low voter turnout. Only 51% of eligible Detroit voters actually voted in last year's presidential election. Despite the low number, that was the best turnout the city had seen in the last 20 years. Less than 15% of eligible Detroiters voted in the August primary this year. This number leaves some Detroiters scratching their heads. Detroit resident Wilmore Allen says the importance of voting should be obvious to black people.
Well, it's a shame because, through slavery and, all the things that black people have went through and fought through just for the opportunity to vote, and they won't take it.
Sierra Davis is another Detroit voter who sees going to the polls as important.
If you want to see a change in the community, then that's your time to make your voice be heard and get out and vote.
So why are so few Detroiters showing up to the polls? Jerome Weber is a Detroiter who doesn't believe in voting.
Because I believe our votes don't go nowhere. And the only thing we voting for is the things that we think and hope for. This gonna come to pass, which never come to pass. So this is why I don't believe in voting.
Weber said he believes no matter who he would vote for, nothing would actually change.
What do it have to benefit me to vote in this next election?
Detroiter Demetrius Knuckles strongly disagrees.
The vote does count. The only time a vote doesn't count is when you don't vote.
Knuckles spent 28 years behind bars before getting out of prison in 2018. He now works as a street team leader with Michigan Liberation, a grassroots organization focused on criminal justice reform. He now spends his time talking to people like Jerome, hoping to inspire them to vote. Knuckles says often, one of the reasons people don't vote is simply because they don't know they can.
People who are on parole, probation, they don't think that they could vote. People who are awaiting trial, they don't think that they could vote. You have people who have warrants out for their arrest. They don't think that they could vote.
Knuckles spends a lot of time working in areas of Detroit with low voter turnout, particularly in the city's 48205, 48215, and 48213 zip codes on the east side. Some of the precincts in this area had less than 3% voter turnout during the August primary. Knuckles says given some of the hardships facing thousands of Detroiters, he understands why a lot of them don't care about voting.
When you have been down like we have been down, and impoverished like we have been impoverished and discriminated against like we've been discriminated against, we automatically are against the system that is discriminating against us and keeping us impoverished. So we don't want to vote for that system. Therefore, we don't think that our vote really matters in the grand scheme of elections.
According to census data, Nearly a third of families in the 48213 zip code live in poverty. Knuckles says Detroiters who lack resources have bigger things going on than an election.
When people are down and hopeless, they have no money. He says, I'm broke, I don't have anything, I'm homeless. He do not care about an election.
Knuckles believes educating citizens on the importance of voting is the only way to overcome these challenges. But what about areas that have a different set of challenges, like Southwest Detroit? Gabriela Santiago Romero is running for city council in the 6th district, which includes Southwest Detroit. She says one of the big hurdles in those precincts is so many people living there weren't born in the U.S.
There's actually a lot of folks that can't vote right now, and those that can have not been engaged to do so.
Santiago Romero says immigrant-populated communities in Detroit have to deal with more problems than just the language barrier.
So I think folks in general, we are not asked or really told about the importance of our vote for every election. It's not something that we're practiced in doing. And then since it's not something that it's in practice, new immigrants, as soon as they can vote, often don't because it's not something that we practice here.
Her opponent in this race is Hector Santiago. He agrees that getting people to vote in municipal elections is important. That's why he's been going door to door, not only trying to get people to vote for him, but just to get them to vote.
As we've seen, there hasn't been no noise around the city council race or mayoral race, and it should be a lot of noise about this because this is actually as important as a presidential race because we are running a budget. We are doing ordinances, we're representing our districts, we are the public servant for our people. So.
And he feels he's responsible for getting people informed.
Oh my goodness, but if it's my district, it's my responsibility. If I'm running for it, I gotta educate my people, right? And I'm not, the clerk has her job or his job, right? But at the end of the day, I got my job. And if I want the people to know who I am and to come out and vote, I gotta do my work. I gotta educate my people, why to vote, who to vote, why to vote, but I'm not saying who to vote for, but these are the pros and cons, because at the end of the day, education is key.
The city saw less than 20% of eligible voters cast ballots this time around, but that's about what city officials had expected since it wasn't a presidential election. That number could improve heading into next year's gubernatorial primaries in the spring. On Election Day, we caught up with Letitia Johnson, a city council candidate in District 4. Here's what she had to say about the voting process.
But I went at 7 o'clock this morning. So it was nice, clean, easy, simple.
Detroiter Hubert Edwards was happy to be among the relative few who voted in this most recent election.
Today to vote, and I vote.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, Ronnie. I voted.
For more stories from our partners at BridgeDetroit and American Black Journal, just head to our website at onedetroitpbs.org. And finally, we want you to join us on Monday night for One Detroit Arts and Culture. We have interviews with national and local artists, performances, art exhibitions. It's all devoted to our great arts and culture scene right here in Michigan. So here's a look at our conversation with singer-songwriter Gabriel Duran. He's from Southwest Detroit, and he helped create Southwest Fest to showcase artists from around the area.
That's simple, and I move in silence with my kinfolk. I ain't stopping till I see my bills on payroll, and they know that she wanna tell me something. Probably best if I don't say nothing. Pull it deep to the last few functions. Hate to see me on.
What was the moment for you where you were like, you know what, I can do this. I want to take a real shot at music. What was that moment for you?
I think it came around, so I used to be a part of a hip hop collective that started in my neighborhood. It was called, we called ourselves Awkward Theory. It was like a hip hop collective that wanted to focus on using live instrumentation. And that was back when I was like 16, 17. And I think that was really the moment where I realized that this was not only what I really wanted to do, but something that was realistic even. We put out our debut album and it did really well within the neighborhood. It was cool because like a lot of people like knew our songs. Like they'd show up to the shows and like they'd be singing our song, and not only that, but they were also like supporting too, which is the big thing because like you said, like a lot of people think it's like, oh, you got a cool song, you hit somebody up, you do a show, and your life is just like this magical journey with, like being not like the center of attention, but like being in the spotlight for that moment, right? But what they don't see is like the, you know, the shows where people might not support.
What motivates you to continue to try and carve out this space for yourself?
My music, what keeps me going, I guess, at the end of the day, is knowing that if I'm able to, like, the further along I get on this journey, the more likely it is that I can open doors for others that might want to take this same path.
Make sure to join us Mondays at 7:30 p.m. for One Detroit Arts and Culture. That is going to do it for me, but we wanted to take just a moment and give our thanks and honor to all of those who served our country. We celebrate you this Veterans Day. I'll see you next time. Take care.
You can find more at onedetroitpbs.org or subscribe to our social media channels and sign up for our One Detroit newsletter.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV, the Kresge Foundation, Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Business Leaders for Michigan, dedicated to making Michigan a top 10 state for jobs, personal income, and a healthy economy. Also brought to you by, and viewers like you.